Record. Whew. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Seeking Integrity. I am usually here with Tammy, but I don't know where she's at. I did text her. We did confirm last week, but it's also the holiday season, and so lots of things can change over time. So, welcome. If you would like to ask me a question, my name is Troy Love. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am the author of the workbook Finding Peace. I run a couple of drop-in groups at Seeking Integrity or sexandrelationshiphealing.com, depending on which one you get connected to. I'm supposed to change my background, so here we go. There you go, something like that. But usually what happens is that people ask me questions. The easiest way to do that is to post them in the Q&A. There should be a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can click on that, and then you can type in the questions for that, and then I'll do my best to answer them. Hopefully you all have had a wonderful holiday season and that all is well with you in the world. So normally I have Tammy to talk to. It's a little weird because I can see all of your names on the side here, but I can't see any of your faces. We do this a little differently than the drop-in groups where you can see each other. And the drop-in groups have been created so we can build some camaraderie and some support for you. So if you want to know more about those, you can go to sexandrelationshiphealing.com and then click on the free resources link that will take you to the drop-in groups if you haven't been there before. So in the meantime, I would love to hear any questions that you might have. Usually over the holidays, there's opportunities for lots of stress and lots of opportunities for conflict in relationships, lots of opportunities for our wounds to be bumped. And so if you had that happen and you're trying to figure out how to move forward with all of that, then let me know, and we will do our best to answer those. I had somebody reach out to me just the other day who he was having a problem with his spouse, and wanted to know what the best way would be to confront her about something that was bothering him. And his way of doing that was going to blame. If you're familiar with the burpees, blaming, rescuing, protesting, or escaping, he wanted to blame. And so I told him that a better way of doing that would be to explain how it was affecting him rather than pointing out the things that she was doing wrong. And we'll see how it goes. We do have a question. I have a severe attachment wound. I have severe attachment wounds, but I feel so much unsafety and fear in my heart. I have experience with this? So I do personally, and as a therapist. When we have some severe attachment wounds, which include loss, neglect, rejection, abandonment, betrayal, or abuse, oftentimes, depending on the severity of those wounds, we learn how to hold back. We learn how to either withdraw or put walls up in order to try and protect ourselves from being hurt again. And the act of being vulnerable can be really, really scary, because with vulnerability, we have the possibility of being hurt again. We have the possibility of having those wounds reopened, having those wounds poked and prodded in the past. And so we don't feel very safe. And so there is a lot of fear. And so part of the healing process is seeing if there is anybody in our life to whom we can feel even a little bit of safety and try to build on those relationships of trust. So with a friend or a therapist or a coach or somebody might be the first place to start, or even joining a group and not having to say a whole lot, just being there and kind of sitting and watching what's going on. And then when you feel a little bit more safe, maybe sharing a comment here or there. It's it's not like we're expecting you to jump into the deep end of the pool when you don't know how to swim. That can be really, really terrifying. So also being able to recognize that we do have wounds and they do hurt. And so I need to find ways to take care of those wounds. I need to do things that I can do to do wound care around that. Oftentimes with these wounds comes some core beliefs that I'm not enough, that there's something wrong with me, that I can't trust other people, other people will leave me. So some of those core beliefs get woven into those. And so part of that is also challenging those core beliefs and saying, is it 100% true? So it is a very common experience with somebody who has profound wounds to feel fear. And so we ask ourselves, what do I need to help me feel a little bit safer? And how can I ask for that? And it's very vulnerable when we ask for that, but uh, to say, what do I need? What do I need to feel safer? Do I need assurance? Do I need someone to be present with me? Do I need to know that you're not going to judge me? Do I need to feel like you're going to not run away? So those are some things to figure out, and then figuring out how to ask them. So thank you so much for that question. I appreciate it. The next question, how do I know if I should stay or go? We've been married with 2 young kids, and I discovered 5 months ago he is on his best behavior, but the disrespect, betrayal, and underlying issues of lying and delusion and fantasy is just too much to live with for the next half of my life. But untangling our lives is so much, like a domino effect. How does one navigate around this? It feels too overwhelming to move, and I feel stuck. So first of all, thank you so much for asking that question. I get asked that question a lot, and I don't have a, like a black and white cut and dry answer. What I do tell people is that when you know, you know. I have a client right now who has been living in a relationship where there's been betrayal going on probably throughout their entire marriage. They have several children, many of whom are now grown and getting ready to move on. And yet, when she sits and ponders upon whether or not she wants to be in the relationship, she still does not have a definitive answer. So she kind of lives in this limbo place, and she wonders what's wrong with her, that she can't have a definitive answer, that there's something wrong with her. And I reassure her that when she knows that it's time to leave, there will be this feeling that just comes on her that will help her know that it's time or not. And so the simple, but not, it's kind of complicated, but the simple answer is you will know. Some things to do while you're waiting is to be able to figure out or to see if there is any amends that is going to be made from your partner, to see if change is happening, and to also, and maybe you have already done this, but to be honest with your partner and let your partner know, like, these are some of the things that are really big hurdles and barriers for me. And I don't know if I will be able to ever overcome those, but this is something that would help me make it a little easier, to make the hurdle not so hard. Hopefully, both of you are getting some support through counseling, both individually and as a couple. I don't know how long he has been in sobriety, or if he even is, or if he's working a program. Um, so I don't know any of that, but what I will say is I want you to be able to honor yourself and trust yourself. Oftentimes we find ourselves second guessing, and there's a lot of fear that goes into whether we should stay or not, and how that's going to affect the kids and all those things. But when you know that it's time, you'll know, and there will be a sense of peace that comes upon you. And though, even though it will be enormously difficult, if that is the direction that you need to go, there will also be a sense of it's going to be okay, or it's going to be okay to stay, and we'll figure it out. So I hear that you're feeling stuck. Um, we do have some support groups for betrayed partners around some of these issues, and I believe we're having a new one that's coming up with after a relationship is over, how do we move on? And those can be found at the um, sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Thank you so much for your question. We have another one that says, I'm a betrayed partner, and I was curious about transparency around triggers for my sex addict partner. Specifically, I wonder if you have any suggestions for techniques my partner could use to acknowledge triggers in the moment. For example, an attractive person, a suggestive song in a way that might help increase connection between us. I'd also be curious if you have thoughts about triggering journal, which I've heard in an essay mentioned in a 12-step couples meeting. I understand any journal work would be private. Thank you for acknowledging that. I've had several clients who have written in their journal, and then their partner finds it and reads it. And that's really, really, really traumatic for both. So I would recommend that you not read your partner's journal, regardless of which side of the um, you're on. Those are meant for processing, and not necessarily meant to be considered set in stone. I did notice that somebody has their hand raised, and I don't have the ability to do anything with that. But if you want to put your question in the Q&A, that would be really helpful. So I can't, I can give you some techniques, but it really depends on where both of you are at. Um, I've had I've known couples who are able to acknowledge and even talk about who their favorite or most attractive movie star is, for example, and they're able to laugh, and there's not a threat around that. I've known some couples who can do that, and then I've known some couples where that is extremely triggering for either of the partners. And so it depends on kind of where you're at on your side, and where you're able to hold space for when your partner is honest about things like that. So if your partner is able to say, hey, I noticed that there's a person over there that's a little bit triggering, I would like to, I want to make sure I'm staying focused and being with you, and they acknowledge that, and just saying what's happening, that can be it can be a helpful experience if the partner is able to hold space for that. If the partner then becomes really worried and upset or paranoid that is the focus is on that other person, that can go down pretty badly. So being mindful, like present and mindful, is always a good technique that can be used, but both partners need to be able to use that. So if the one partner said, hey, I noticed there's an attractive person over there, or I noticed that person is over there, and it was a little bit triggering for me, and then the partner is able to say, okay, well, when you say that, I notice that I'm also getting triggered. I'm noticing that my heart is racing and my mind's going a little bit, and together we share about what's happening with that experience, rather than focusing on that person over there, and figuring out, well, what do we both need here? What do we both need in this situation so that we can feel safe, so we can actually turn towards each other as a partnership, and being able to look at, well, what can we both do to support each other in this situation, rather than looking at, well, the fear of like that pulls us apart, or a song that comes up, or any of those things, of being able to say, hey, this is what's happening with me, and being able to process that and say, these are some of the thoughts that I'm having. They don't have to be like nitty gritty, but usually what's happening is that there's a fear. Oftentimes also, the SA person may not even recognize that they're doing it because it's such a habit for them. And so you as a partner, you can say, hey, I noticed you're looking at something. What's going on? And they may say, what? I wasn't looking at anything. Or you can just put your hand, hold their hand or rub their back and say, hey, I'm over here. Do you notice what was happening? And being able to have a dialogue about that. But the idea is, what can we do to like support each other, even though that's really, really, really hard. I'm telling Tammy that I logged on. So anyway, so hopefully that's helpful. As far as the journaling, that is a beautiful thing to do. When I'm working with individuals who are struggling with addiction, and they see these triggers, what I try to help them understand is there's something underneath that. And 99% of the time it's connected to one of your attachment wounds. So whatever they're being triggered by, they can go into fantasy about that, or which is not necessarily helpful, or they can start to understand like, what is it about that fantasy that's trying to help me get one of my needs met that will never actually get my need met, and what is a healthier way for me to be able to do that. So what's the underlying need that's going on with this trigger, this person in the grocery store, this song that comes up? Is it I'm scared and I need comfort? Is it that I'm feeling lonely and I need connection? Is it that I'm feeling abandoned, or whatever it is? And how then can I be transparent about that and ask to get my need met in a healthier way than what I'm doing with this fantasy and these addictive behaviors that lead to just more suffering and shame. So hopefully that helped a little bit. Thank you so much for that. Right. Oh, look, we got somebody on here. Ooh.
I am so sorry. I was on a phone call. I was doing emails. Completely lost track of things. So
That's okay.
yeah, well, this is one of those I'm incredibly grateful that like you know how to log in on the back end of this. So all good. So yeah. But
I was just about to read the next question.
I
So,
can't see any of them. So if you move them
oh,
to answered, then I can because I logged on late. So
okay. I'll read.
thank you, everybody. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. This person said, I'd like to join your attachment webinar for betrayed partners. I did in the past, but it's difficult. These Q&A webinars are easier for me. What do you think? Yeah, sometimes the betrayed partner drop-in groups can be triggering. You can just hover, or whatever they call those, people who are just listening. You don't have to participate. There's a lot of people that just are there to listen, and they may provide a text answer for support here and there. But if this is easier for you, then start here. There's also lots of recordings of these webinars that are available on YouTube, that if you wanted to go back and watch some of those, then that's okay. You do what works best for you in where you're at in recovery. So if it feels too vulnerable to be in one of those drop-in groups, that's okay. You by all means do not have to be in the healing seat. until you're ready. And I'll let you know that lots and lots of people are worried about that. So you never have to do that unless you're ready. But if this works better for you, then that's fantastic. And maybe you want to try some of the other drop-in groups that are a little different than mine, and see how those fit too. Do you have any thoughts?
And well, yeah, they're all of them have a different, kind of tone and flavor. And, for example, like the old lady posse, that's a specific thing. The moving on alone is absolutely for people who are looking to leave a relationship. So very specific and very different. But I always think, and I hear the triggers. I believe we need connection. So while I love that you're coming here, but you're typing, so it's like once removed from, which may be the right spot for you. Again, no judgment, no shame, no whatever. Just thinking out loud. Because I'm so prepared for this today, LOL. But no, it really is, we heal with others. And so even if you go, gosh, that resonates with me, and I might need to journal about whatever I'm getting triggered with. That could be a moment of healing for you. I say this to the addicts usually too. It's like, if you can, because they'll, and this is a generalization, but often it'll be like, I can't relate to anything. And I'm like, if you can relate to the emotional components of it, can you connect on that? And can you understand, the pain and go, okay, we can as a group move forward. My experience as I sub in on drop-in groups is that there are people in various stages. It isn't all people that are just there right now. And so there are people that are further on the journey and able to go, hey, yeah, I was there, and, I've moved forward in a different way. I think that can be really encouraging as well. So, but like you can come for 10 minutes, and if you go, yep, too much, whatever, okay. But I would encourage you to try another group, try again, because you are also making progress and moving in a different direction. So it may be that you go, hey, today I'm in a place where this is a fit, or somebody new came on and you go, wow, that I really resonate with them. So I always think just keep trying different things, and don't necessarily go, oh, I've been to that and it's not for me. Go, it wasn't right for me in that moment, but I wonder, be curious. I wonder if it would be now. So you never know. And I do love Troy's stuff, because I find the attachment work is so powerful and can be overwhelming, but also so healing if we're able to be in that place. And it isn't necessarily the right spot for brand new people who are really experiencing. But wow, when you're able to go, wow, that I mean, I shared yesterday, I was with a group that I was using Troy's work, and like the attachment wounds, and I even shared, and how much I don't like this part, the martyr. Like I even shared that I had to own that, like I have that in me. I don't like that part at all. I don't,
Me,
and I know I don't want that one, but guess what? It is. And so like I have to own there are moments, so but just being able to name those things, just to have some language to use on that is was really, helpful for me. And, and I've seen that with others as well. It's not just all about me. It's like, I've seen that with others. I so appreciate your work, Troy, because, giving language to, oh, this is what's happening, I can get it up into my executive brain rather than going, oh my gosh, and, feeling the, so.
thank you. The next one says, I feel an internal battle on staying with someone capable of this type of behavior and total disregard for me. I feel like I'll never be okay knowing what I do. How could I ever be sexual or have any kind of trust with someone that can stab me in the back repeatedly? I have 40 plus years in. I feel like I need some peace and respect in my life. It's been 3 years and he has lied up until about 6 months ago. So first, my heart hurts with you. That's a lot of betrayal to have been dealing with for 40 years. And it sounds like you found out 3 years ago, but the behavior obviously has been going on for a whole lot longer. So that internal battle of, can I stay or should I go? That's what somebody else had asked earlier. And part of the work that you can do is working on connecting with your self-worth, your internal value. Because oftentimes over the years, when we are degraded and felt put down, we lose connection with our internal worth, or maybe we never had connection with that in the first place. And so connecting with that internal worth, finding ways to remind myself that I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of being treated with respect, I'm worthy of connection, I'm worthy of dignity. All of those kind of things um, are things that you can do to work on with yourself, and you can find a qualified therapist who can help work through that. There are several therapists who are trained in working with betrayal trauma that can work with that. And so you've been doing this for 40 years. You don't have to make a decision today or tomorrow, but the more that you connect with your internal worth, the more that that internal light will guide you on what you need to do for yourself. And the more that you connect with that, the more that your partner will realize that the tactics that he has been using are no longer going to work, because you can see through them. You're not manipulated by them anymore. And so he will either need to figure out how to change those, or he loses you um, as you move forward. So my heart hurts with you. And those questions about how can you be sexual with someone that you don't trust, well, you don't have to be. And so working with your value and finding ways to connect with yourself is what I would focus on. And his recovery will be his recovery. And if he doesn't do it, you're worthy of of being loved and cherished and valued.
Dr. Rob always says, why would you have sex with somebody you don't trust? So like Troy just said, you don't have to. And I put some resources in the chat. So like the Moving On Alone drop-in group that I mentioned a few minutes ago, it is for women who have left, have been left, or are considering leaving. I always say have 1.5 feet out the door. It's a safe place to explore what that would be like for you. I also included the Empowered Women's in-person retreat. We have one in January in Kentucky and another in Austin, Texas in March. And those are in person with our team from a Prodependent Lens. And the Betrayed Partner online work group is starting again in January. Part of that, and this is where I want to go with that too, is healthy boundaries. Like healthy boundaries are for your safety, physical safety, financial safety, emotional safety, spiritual safety. Troy uses the relational safety, whichever. But it is those. What do you need for your safety? And having sex with somebody who is unsafe. If you haven't gotten an STD test, please do that, because even if he says it was only porn, don't believe him. But that's part of I'm taking care of my physical safety. Maybe it is you're sleeping in separate bedrooms. Maybe it is, he needs to leave the house, whatever it is that you need, but it's about your safety. What do you need to do to take care of you? And yes, you have a long time invested in this. And, there is I've been doing this so long, I need to say, again, that's kind of the old lady posse is accountability. But it's for people who are in long-term relationships. And how do we navigate all of this? So not staying or whatever you choose is up to you. But please know, that you, we have lots of people who stay with a person in active addiction, but they have healthy boundaries. So they're taking care of themselves. They have their posse of people, their tribe of people that are safe, people to connect with, that can help them on the journey. So you're not alone. There are some resources there for you to lean into. And ultimately, we always hope that, he does get a clue, like Troy says, with your healthy boundaries, you start bumping up and and go, oh, I need to change. you know Change is difficult. Change is very difficult for all of us, but it has to start with somebody. And you, as Troy said, knowing your worth and going, I'm going to take care of me. You can choose that. So
I
okay.
can you see them now?
I can see the one that started at 10:46,
Okay.
but otherwise in the answered, I can only see them after you hit answered.
Okay. All
So,
right.
oh wait, I've got it's hard to communicate. Is that the next one?
No, there's one above that.
Okay, hit that. If you click and answer live into answered, then I'll be able to see it in the answered.
Okay. We have a group of betrayed women wanting to do a study group. Any ideas on a workbook for us about our moving forward with this betrayal and how to live now that this is a part of our lives today? Well, I at the risk of boasting, I do have a workbook called the Finding Peace Workbook.
It's not boasting, it's providing resources.
Okay. Which you can find on Amazon if you would like. And actually, I've known several people who have used that group. You've used that book in a reading group type of setting, and it's worked really well. There's some others that one by Claudia Black, which is Intimate Treason, which I'm going to tell you, it will kick your butt. It is pretty intense. So I often have people work with the Finding Peace workbook first, and then they can dive into something deeper than that. But those are two. I'm sure that Tammy might have some suggestions as well of some.
Yeah, yeah, I'll put we have a whole list of books on our website, so I'll put the link to that if I can find it. Yes, I have it right here. So I will put that. We have bunches of books and workbooks, and then we have our work group. I do think doing this with a facilitator is helpful, and Angela Spearman does a great job. And that Betrayed Partner work group starts again in January. I already included that in the chat as well. So there's lots of I setting healthy boundaries. Like if you guys are really solid in this and you've got your healthy boundaries in place and all that, yeah, then doing the deeper work is really helpful. But like with the addicts, it's like you got to stop these behaviors and then address the underlying issues. Same thing, providing support and all that, getting help with some trauma work, all of those things, great. But healthy boundaries for each of you is key to all this. So okay, so now are we up to it's hard to communicate?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. It's hard to communicate with my betrayed wife. I know that I need to walk in the fire and address our current situation with her. She does not want to go out with me because she feels that someone who I acted out with will see us and make fun of her. Any suggestions?
So I'm sure that's hard for both of you. And I love that you do recognize that you need to walk into the fire. For her, it sounds like there's a lot of fear of what other people are thinking of her, which is often the case when they find out that this has happened. They don't want to tell anyone because they're really afraid of what people will think. And so for you, having empathy for that, even if it doesn't cognitively make sense, like even though the likelihood of somebody making fun of her might be relatively small, but her fear is profound. So being able to recognize, okay, well that is scary. So is there something else we can do besides go out? Is there other places that we could go? Or there are other things that we could do at home where we still are having a date night? We're still finding ways to connect, but that happens in a way where you can feel safe until we can actually go out again. I would hope that your partner is maybe working through some of that. When I talk about attachment wounds, in even with betrayal, uh, what is more painful is what we've come to believe about ourselves and the world around us as a result. And so even though there is betrayal, part of the work that we have to do around that is figuring out how to confront those stories and figure out what is actually true. So even if there is somebody that's out there making fun of her, for her to be able to connect with her own value and recognize that's not actually about me, that's about their stuff, and that they feel like they need to put somebody, throw somebody under the bus in order to make them feel better. I know that I'm enough. That's easily said, harder to do, because there's some work around that, which is going to be a process, because as you have probably figured out, when your partner finds out that they've been betrayed, immediately their core beliefs are, I wasn't enough for you, I don't matter, somebody matters more than you, I'm stupid that I didn't see this. And so all of their core beliefs just rise to the top of just feeling like a complete idiot and not enough. And that's going to take a lot of work on your part to restore trust, to repair damage, make amends. And that's the part that you have power to do. You have the power to be able to be honest. You have the power to be able to restore what was taken, being able to devote time and energy to that. You have the power to do that. You don't have the power to dictate the timeline of her healing, but you do have the power to do a lot to help pack safety back into the relationship. First and foremost is don't lie.
Yeah, this one really it hurts my heart, because like I'm going, wow, like she is, her world is getting really small out of, and I'm not minimizing, I'm like, I see this, there's fear that someone out of, out of everyone and who's out there, is going to see and make fun, so it's like this very, very specific thing. I would love for her to, the empowered women's retreat, oh my goodness, I can't imagine how good that would be for her. It's a way, but it would be with other people who have walked through this. You can't fix her, you can do your work, and the more that you are becoming trustworthy, that is helpful. But I hope she is working with a qualified professional, because those are deep, deep wounds for her. So if she doesn't have a qualified professional, reach out to me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and let me know where you're located, and I'll do my best to help find somebody. But um, uh, that is difficult. There's lots of things I'm thinking, well, you could come up with a safe word, but I'm like, if she's almost like paralyzed to go out, because of fear, that feels like a deeper work, with a qualified professional. Do you think it's important for an SA to share the type of porn he prefers with his therapist CSAT? My partner has shared that he looks for drunk mom porn, and I know there's some deep wounds, definitely enmeshment, covert incest, and possibly some buried sexual abuse he sustained from his alcoholic mom.
I do think it's important. That is something that we definitely work through, with the clients that I have, because as I was saying earlier, that's very much tied into wounds. So the type of porn they look at, the type of behavior that they engage in, for me, my belief is it's very much tied into some of their wounds and needs. Um, there Patrick Carnes has the 10 types of sex addiction, that he wrote about several years ago, and he theorized, and I've kind of ran with that each one of those types of sex addiction has some unmet needs connected to them, that when you find ways to get those needs met, the desire to act out in those particular ways gets diminished. So when we're working with clients who are struggling, I absolutely believe it's imperative to look at the kind of porn, not look at the kind of porn, but examine the kind of porn that they're looking at, and explore what's underneath that for them. And you're probably spot on with what you are identifying is going on with that.
I agree, because people call and say he looks at porn, or someone else say I look at porn, and I'll go, what kind of porn, and it's an uncomfortable situation for them usually to share that, but it is critically important, because what I visualize as in my head is, oh, they're looking at that kind of porn. can be completely different, and it does matter. There are some resources for you to consider with the covert incest and possible enmeshment. Dr. Ken Adams did a podcast with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction. It's on our website. It's if you click on the links there, you'll see that link to the podcast. He wrote books about that as well. And but I'm also going the drunk mom. Troy's work with attachment wounds. There's also a podcast on sex, love, and addiction. Dr. Enid Gray did Neglect the Silent Abuser. I love that book because it's, it isn't, Child Protective Services, swoops in. It's, an addicted parent who can't show up. So it's pretty easy for the dissociation to take place because there isn't safety and having emotional needs with the adults. So there's lots of good information that can help the journey, but I hope he's getting he's getting real help around this. We do have Sex Addiction 101 online work group that starts again in January. That would be another component. Stop the problematic behavior and then address the underlying issues. And if it's all porn addiction, like you said SA, but if it is all online, we have Porn Addiction 101 that is starting again as well. And they'll have a solid foundation, a 3-circle plan. They'll understand what addiction is and isn't, so it's a good starting place. It's not enough. I mean, that's with all the other resources to utilize as well, but it'd be a start. So I'm sorry. And it's, and I really do believe, that, parents are, they're doing the best they can, but, if they're facing addiction and they're doing all of these other things, the poor kiddo is just, but here's where we can stop it. Dr. Rob says all the time too, he does this work for the adults, but it's really for the kids. Because if we stop this stuff here, guess what? The kids, can be in a very different place as well. Okay. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I will put a link in for the podcast, but I'm going to read this to Troy first. As a betrayed partner, my husband chose his addiction over his 3 kids and me. Okay, I feel so much loss and neglect. Not only did he cheat for 14 years of marriage, but he chose to continue in his addiction after I gave him so many chances to show me he wanted to work on us. But in the last 3 years since D-Day, he was not able to stay sober or do recovery work. Any ideas on how I get past this pain? I did not want to be a single mother. I did not want to be alone at age 32. I did not want this life. I did not want to stop having kids. I did not want to stop having sex at my age. How do I move on when I don't want to move on? I still love my husband, not his addiction.
I love that last line. You still love him, you just don't love his addiction. So it's hard to get past the pain when the behavior continues. I don't know how much your husband has done work, if he's not been able to stop his behavior, even though he's seeing the consequences, he might need a higher level of care. So if he doesn't have a therapist, then I'm hoping he gets one. If he's not going to a 12-step group, I am hoping he's going. If that stuff has been happening and it's still not helping, then he might want to consider going to inpatient, where it's 3 to 4 weeks of solid therapy to try and help him get some sobriety under his belt. We offer that at Seeking Integrity. So for him, like, I don't know how much he has or hasn't done. Addiction is brutal, and that part of the definition of an addiction is engaging in a behavior that we can't stop, even though it's causing such chaos and upheaval in our lives. So that's part of the challenge, is that he is an addict, and he's struggling with that. I hear the sadness of you not wanting to have had to deal with this. You're 32 years old. You want to have a life. You want to be able to have a partner. You want to have more children, but you don't feel safe bringing them into the world. Like all of those kind of things that are heartbreaking, and it feels as if you're entered into like a life sentence, which my heart breaks because I can get why it feels that way. And so part of what we've been saying today is, what do you need? I know that it helps if he could stop his behavior, but what do you need to be able to feel worthy of love, to be able to feel, to grieve the sadness, because you're going through the grieving process of all the things that you've lost, and how do you move forward? I can tell you from a personal perspective that at nearly 50 years old, none of the things that I thought were going to happen to me when I got married have happened. In fact, everything has been exactly the opposite. And I sit here sometimes and I cry and I'm sad because none of the dreams that I hoped would have happened. And yet, trying to find ways to find joy in the moment and the beauty that life has given me, that's something I work on every day. And I get help for some of that. And so you're not alone in your suffering. You're not alone in the sadness. Um, if you want to sign up for the Betrayed Partner class, it's coming up. It's relatively inexpensive and it gives you some tools. We have the drop-in groups for you where you can not feel so alone. Hopefully you can find a therapist who can help you work through all of your pain and your grieving as you're working through that. But my heart hurts with you, and I'm thankful for your vulnerability and sharing that. And I'm hoping your husband will figure things out. The thing that kind of sticks out to me as I'm reading this is he doesn't love himself. And so he doesn't love himself, so he does not have the capacity to put anybody else, to love anybody else either, because he does not love himself. And so he doesn't have room even for himself. It sounds very selfish what he's doing, but it's actually self-loathing behavior, not self-love behavior. So if he could learn how to love himself a little bit more, he might be able to figure out how to stop numbing so much and start loving y'all more as well.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that, but addiction is a maladaptive coping mechanism, and this sounds, almost trite, but whether it's alcohol, sex, gambling, gaming, whatever it is, it's the numbing, it's the escape, and so I hear someone who has not seen the lifeline yet that recovery can offer. So and I hear like you've given them choices and things like that, but I don't, and I don't know, this is just I don't know that he's had help with a pathway to yes, Troy. Um, I do not see that he has seen, because I can tell you from my own experience, when I was in active addiction, I didn't like what I was doing and I didn't have a clue how to stop. And someone just telling me to stop, or like you're like all of the negative consequences, I still didn't know how to stop until someone gave me the tools, which is what recovery work is, and then I can stop the problematic behaviors and then address the underlying issues, and then I can show up as a different person. I love that our company is called Seeking Integrity. We strive for that on a personal basis. Most of us are in recovery, and we want to help other people find that as well. And yes, life is full of all the things that we didn't plan on, some good, some not so great, and but it is learning how to how to address this. So at this point you have someone who can't be a person of integrity for you or for your children. Of course you didn't get married to him expecting to be a single parent or have any of this. When I sub in on the Betrayed Partner groups a few months ago, I said, this is the group that you never wanted to be part of. And one of the people who's been on the journey and has really done her work with growing and finding herself, said it isn't the journey I would have chosen, the path I would have chosen, but I am stronger than I anticipated. She knows herself so much better. She has, she's in a much different place. So I'm telling you that if you're willing, you're not alone, and there's a ton of support, that can help you find healthy boundaries for you, that's what you can do. Healthy boundaries for you, take care of you and your kiddos. That shifts things. So um, I'm so glad you're here, and lots of resources I've shared in there too. Okay. And then the next one is, the name of the podcast. So it's Sex, Love, and Addiction. And I put that in the link. You can always find this stuff on our website. Cancel, answer live. And then the next one, he has seen a therapist you recommended 2 years ago. He has gone to SA once a week and dropped all that after he relapsed after 5 months. So we are going towards divorce, but I so much wanted to have him get into recovery. So addiction is a 24/7 issue. When I hear somebody's going to a therapist once a week, for 50 minutes, even Troy Love, a great therapist, and going to one S group a week, that isn't enough.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah, at best, it's two
I
hours. And if you're warming a seat in SA, you're not really working the steps. You're not getting a sponsor. You're not talking in the meetings. You're just like, it's watching television. Like it's going to have no impact. So I'm sorry for you, but I'm sorry for him because he's missing out on life, on you, on all of those things. So that is when people have been given, here's some tools and here's a path, and they choose not to, that is sad. Okay, so the next one, I'm a mother of a grown son and a mother-in-law. I hear many daughter-in-laws talk about how they hate their mother-in-law in many of the drop-in groups. It's really pains me to think that I possibly enmeshed my son while I was being abused by his father. How do I know if I did and what I can do about it now? My daughter-in-law had made it clear she doesn't like me at all, but won't tell me what I've done. Oh, that's a challenging one. What are your thoughts?
well, I can relate. So I feel really, really sad. There might have been things that you have done. Unfortunately, if she won't tell you, it's hard to figure that out. Um, I it, uh, at the same time, it may not have been about you at all. Um, it may have been things that your uh, son has said. You identified the enmeshment stuff. Um, so the only I don't know what your relationship is like with your son, but you could identify that you want to have a better relationship with him and his wife. And what can you do to help improve that? Um, I mean, I don't think mother-in-laws in the drop-in groups are, I think people struggle with in-laws a lot. There's a lot of differences in culture, a lot of differences in the way things were done. The person caught in the middle is trying to make sure that their partner and their parents are happy. So there's a lot of that, and often, and I don't know how long your son and daughter-in-law have been married, but we didn't talk about a lot of that stuff in the past. We would make jokes and things about that. But nowadays, as more understanding is happening, we might be able to have a better conversation. We might be have a deeper conversation and say, I want to have a relationship with you. If and I care about you. I want to be a support for you. What can I do? And your daughter-in-law may choose not to, or she may. But part of that is saying, like, look, I understand I'm not perfect, but I want to learn what I can do to have a better relationship with you. It comes from a vulnerability and a humility place that may or may not work, but I hear the sadness and the pain and the part of you that wants to take ownership as well and saying, like, maybe I made some mistakes and I want to fix that. So I want to honor that. And some of this is not because of you.
I would invite you to read, when he's married to mom. You may see things in there. Matt Wheeler did our mutual friend did a webinar in the last month or so, and he said the best relationships I see have the healthiest boundaries. So I would invite you to talk about healthy boundaries, like, and look at it. I am a mother-in-law, and I work really hard at keeping my mouth shut. If someone asks me, I like, if and I do, they do come to me and ask, for information, then I'm happy to. I see lots of things that I would love to meddle in, and I just go, not my circus. It really is up how they live, how they raise children, my grandchildren. It is up to them. And so the healthier boundaries I have, the more I'm actually able to be connected with them, because we, are able to connect. But I do, I would love to have you kind of listen to that, and be curious, like, what are some things, how can I be, what would be useful for us. I want to have a good relationship, and I'm willing to do, some personal work to see if we can get there. Are you, willing to as well? So I don't think you have to just accept that this is always going to be like this. You being willing to be vulnerable and stepping into that space, could really pay dividends. The next question, and we're going to go, hopefully you got a couple more minutes. Oh, excellent. Okay, we're going to finish this one. I've observed betrayed partners in these groups, and I have never seen anyone happy they stayed in the situation. Is this false hope really a reality for anyone? I certainly struggle with believing that. It will never be the same. You could never look at these betrayers the same, let alone trust and safety, no matter their recovery. And this is really addiction, or really creepy, evil person that feels entitled to do whatever they want. Where's the line there?
I will tell you that I have had couples work through this and have the happiest marriages I have ever seen. And if you ask them, even though it was incredibly painful, they are grateful for having gone through what they went through to get them to where they're at today. There's that story is possible. I don't see that happen with a lot of people, and part of that is they didn't do what it took on both sides. Neither partner did what it took to make it, because it takes two. And so the person who's struggling with the addictive behavior has a lot of things that they need to do to be able to repair trust, to get sobriety, to be able to have integrity, those kind of things. The betrayed partner also has work to do. And as much, I can't tell you how many individuals who struggle with addiction whose partner says to them, well, this is your problem and you fix it, and I'm not going to work on, I don't feel like I need to work on anything. And that, to me, that doesn't go well. It's not your fault as a betrayed partner that this happened, but there's still some things that need to be done. And honestly, when we work through the first steps of recovery and there is sobriety under their belt, then there's some deeper, much more difficult conversations that need to be had about what part are we both playing in making this relationship challenging. And the betrayed partner sometimes doesn't want to look at that. They want to just hold their addict husband to blame for everything, and that isn't the case. There are things that we both do in relationships that make it harder for our partner to love us, to be open with us, to be able to be vulnerable with us. There are things that we both do. And if we can start to own our behavior, I'm not saying that it's my fault that you do what you do, but I can own my behavior and I can increase my empathy for your pain, then we can actually do some things to really come together and laugh and play and be there when we're having a trigger and all those things. And I've seen it happen. So I believe that it is possible. I do not believe that most of the people who are out there are just evil, creepy people who are just entitled. Are there some? Yes, but those are few and far between. Most of the people are severely wounded and have not had an ability to even understand what happened to them. And so they've been stumbling along trying to deal with the pain in the most maladaptive, hurtful ways possible. But once they start to figure that out, they can change. And so can the betrayed partner who's been hurt. So I have hope. I don't think I would do this job if I didn't have hope. And I've seen it happen.
I see it often. I mean, we estimate, and I don't have actual stats on it, but it's probably about 80% of the guys that come to our residential treatment program, their relationships, move forward in a positive way. We get, read the testimonials on our website. A lot of them are from partners. It is this. There's no magical fix. Trust is rebuilt over time. That's if he's doing what he needs to do. Safety, again, we are responsible for our own safety. I have to have my personal boundaries. What are my boundaries for my safety? And if someone's able to meet those, great. If they're not, then then that's on me to take care of me. So I hear the woundedness, but it is not false hope, but it's also being real, like, or being in reality, that there is no, oh, this is, when guys come to our residential program, we don't pretend that in the 14, 21, or 28 days they're going to be magically cured. There's no cure for this. This is a chronic condition. But for those of us, that are on the recovery journey, I've been in recovery a long time, like decades. And I say this often, and I'm only saying this because I continue to do my work. I read my meditations this morning. I go to do my 12-step meetings. I do what I need to do because I don't want to lose that. And I continue to hone in because, I can continue to grow as a person. And I like that I do that. Sometimes I want to be arrived, but that isn't reality. But I know that if I'm willing to continue to do the work, I can continue to grow, and I will be happier with the person I'm becoming, over time. So it's worth it. Like I have lots to learn yet, and I'm still very human, and I'm okay with that. I'm part of the human race. So I would encourage you to connect with other people. You are not alone. Do join the Betrayed Partner online work group that starts in January. That will help with healthy boundaries for you. Communication. How do you navigate this? No one, when you said I do, no one's was like, oh, and then in year whatever you're going to have this discovery. So, but for the couples, like Troy said, for the couples that are willing to do the work, you can have a deeper, connection, a more real, more true, more honest, relationship than you've ever experienced. It's worth it, if you both are willing to do the work. So thank you all. And thank you, Troy, for so glad he has the secret login. Thanks to all of you for hanging in there. Happy New Year, and wishing good things for you in 2024, regardless of what your other people do. Take care of you, safety for you. So if we can be of help on your journey, we're here. Tammy at TAMI at Seeking Integrity, if you're looking for specific resources. And Troy put in his Finding Peace relationship courses, and he has the attachment wound work group on our website too. So thanks, everyone. Bye.
New Year.